Hey everybody, welcome back. Stranger Oddity Show. We're back here on the radio, and yeah, we're gonna be talking about a few things, some prototypes and things that I've actually been working on, and everything. So, I recently picked up a copy of Commando, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I was down at the record store, and I saw it there, and this is for me. This movie is pure childhood for me because I saw this movie. My dad showed this movie to me when I was really young, and it's a blast, and it really is. It's somewhat of a cult following. Commando is. This was late '80s, and for me when I saw it, and it was just mind blowing. This stuff was just nobody. This was pure '80s action. This is just ultimately just craziness. The cover of the movie just says it all. I mean, you got, and I do recall the VHS tape cover was the same. It's just Arnold standing there with this jacket on, or this vest, and it's got hand grenades. He's just ready for war. He's got this, the war paint all, camouflage paint all over him. Just absolutely, you got the buzz cut and everything going on. You just got this awesome movie where he's playing a character, John Matrix, which is a colonel, expert martial artist, just total, certified badass. And then they kidnap his daughter. And big mistake, right? You nuts? You just kidnapped Arnold Schwarzenegger's daughter, and so he's coming back with a vengeance. He's going full blown one man army, This one here that I picked up is a director's cut, which I've heard not only recently that it exists as a director's cut. So I thought that was kind of interesting. This is also a time when Arnold he liked the role because he wasn't a machine. He wasn't a robot. He wasn't a caveman, per se, running around with, he wasn't, so this was more like he had a chance to portray more of a human character. He has a daughter, and that's why if you watch the beginning of the film, it really showcases a real human element, almost like it's almost like a montage of some kind of like sitcom. It just shows like this real, it shows them having fun, just like swimming in a swimming pool, eating ice cream, just doing father and daughter kind of stuff. So it's really interesting to see that, that really starts to break Arnold into that more of a human kind of side of acting, and going back through, looking back at a lot of these movies, they're a bit silly and they're a bit over the top, but this is a movie that knew it was over the top. It knew that it was going to be somewhat silly and comical. So you had a lot of other cast members, supporting cast members in this that the movie's loaded with. That it's really interesting to look back at it. David Patrick Kelly, I believe is his name. He's more known for his voice. The first time I got to really take notice of him, he's the guy in the movie Last Man Standing with Bruce Willis. Where, of course, if you're a 1911 guy, you got to have that movie. You got to see that movie. If you haven't, shame on you. It's directed by, I believe, Walter Hill, which, if you're familiar with his movies, they're just like phenomenal. But he plays a character in that, and it's his voice that really stands out to me. Then when you get to know his face, it's he's quite noticeable in his movies. Very small statured guy, kind of like myself. But anyway, he is also in the movie The Crow. He plays T-Bird. in the movie The Crow with the unfortunate the late Brandon Lee, which cost him his life. But he's in it. You got Ray Don Chong in it, and one of my all-time favorites of the '80s era action, Bill Duke. So you definitely got some really cool guys, and then of course the guy that plays in the movie, he plays Bennett, the Australian actor, which I believe he's also known as the guy that is in Mad Max. Mad Max. He's the crazy guy that they have chained up with the crazy mohawk. But yeah, this movie is just full of all kinds. And then of course you got the I forgot. See, there's so many people in this movie. The main bad guy. You know him from right away when you see him. You'll know who he is. I'm looking at the credits here, and I'm trying to figure out who. Let's in fact look it up, because he's the main bad guy in a lot of movies, and I think he's also in. He's in some Charles Bronson movies, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see here, and then I'll also tell you the name of the. Okay, so yeah, Bennett was played by Vernon Wells. Dan Hedaya, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but so let's go ahead and pull his thing up here. I swear he has been in some action movies with Charles Bronson. I could swear, unless it's a guy that looks exactly like him. Let's see here. All right. Commandos. Whoa. Am I wrong? This guy is not the guy in those Charles Bronson movies? Very interesting. Very, very interesting. That is weird. Okay, so now I'm kind of curious who that is in I want to know now, who is the guy that's in these movies with Charles Bronson. Let's see. Is it gonna tell me? Interesting. The guy that's in those movies is Perry Lopez. Very interesting. They look identical. They really do. So, it fooled me. Hey, we learned something together right now. Anyway, alright. So, back to the main topic, and that's the thing. We get to talking about a lot of these films, and we get so sidetracked. So, Commando is completely over-the-top action. Like I said, you got so this whole storyline. He's going after this. He's going after trying to get his daughter back. I mean, talk about just insane stuff. The mall scene alone, where he's just beating up a whole bunch of security guards. I mean, it's almost like one of those like Andre the Giant wrestling matches where everybody jumps on him and then he just bursts out of the middle of them and they all go flying across the room. He rips. There's a scene where he like rips one of these like inflated tubes that's like decoration in the mall, and he just grabs it with his hands and he just rips it, separates it. It's clearly like some sort of plastic. And he just grips onto this thing and swings like Tarzan across the mall. There's like a couple of things that I questioned when I saw that. I was like, wait a minute. If he just ripped it with his hands, this stuff is obviously like either not that strong or whatever, and then it was able to hold his weight. It doesn't look very strong in the movie. It's just like so. And then he picks up the character of David Patrick Kelly, goes into a phone booth because he sees him, and he says, okay, I got to call and let him know that he's on the loose. He goes in there, grabs the whole phone booth, rips it off the ground, and just throws it like totally Mr. Olympia, throwing it across the room kind of a deal. Heard that's like kind of a take on Casablanca, where Humphrey Bogart rips like the wires out of the phone booth, but then in this case they're like, well, he's Arnold, so we're gonna have him like rip the whole phone booth off out of the wall with the guy in it and throw it. And then of course the most, I think the most comical, but yet our favorite scene is when he just goes into this surplus store and he's like just ransacks this place like a surplus store with the kind of gear that it's showing that it has. Like, this is going to be like this easy for him to break into this place. It actually does end up with the cops obviously arresting him. But it's like you go into the surplus store. Explain to me what surplus store literally has rocket launchers, hand grenades, fully automatic machine guns. That just like blew my mind. I'm like, well, if this surplus store exists, I sure as heck would like to find it and just check it out. like, it's like, yeah, you could go in this surplus store and be like, yep, hi, I'd like to take one of those rocket launchers, a half a case of those hand grenades, and that Desert Eagle 50 caliber. It's like, what in the world? That scene is ridiculous. It's just like, you just, because he breaks in and it's just like the normal looking surplus store. He's just grabbing like pants, jackets, and he grabs like a pair of fins that obviously look like they're like a size 10, and he's like, what, 6'2" and like 200 something pounds. It's like, oh yeah, I'm pretty sure these are gonna fit him. And it's like he just so happens to buy the perfectly tailored stuff for, he's Arnold. I mean, come on. So, but it's over the top. That's what, that's the comical part of the movie. And it doesn't try to hide it. It's not trying to masquerade itself as a serious movie. It knows it is over the top and rather ridiculous. So it knows that, at least. So, but it's insane. So speaking of, and of course we don't need to go through all the other stuff on just like the absolutely ridiculous things of him stealing a plane, shooting an Uzi with one hand, and just like gunning down an entire Jeep full of people. Running around with an M60 machine gun that doesn't seem to ever run out of bullets. In fact, it actually, as he's shooting, it gains bullets. So, anyway. Now, speaking of director's cut, now I've seen this movie a lot when I was a younger kid on videotape. I probably wore that videotape out. I did watch it a lot. This is the director's cut, and when I was watching it, the one thing I did notice that is noticeably different than the edition I've ever seen is literally the little shed scene where he goes into that shed after getting blasted with a hand grenade. He goes to the shed and he starts removing some of the excess gear he's got on, and he knows he gets surrounded. So he looks around the shed and he sees, like a machete, an axe, some saw blades for a skill saw or something. And so he you only can imagine when he's looking around and he does that Arnold look, he's already cooking up something that's not going to be good for the bad guys. The bad guys try to infiltrate this little shed. They start getting pitchforked and everything. So this is the only time I noticed that the scenes were actually extended, and they're quite brutal actually. Considering this movie was like 1985 or something, 1985. Considering, of course, back then you got like think of all the horror movies that were censored and shot down and chopped up. You got saw blades like landing in people's faces and crazy stuff like that. The one scene that they actually, a couple of things that they left in there was the guy getting the top of his head like literally like scalped off by a saw blade. They left that in there, and then the guy getting his arm completely hacked off, which is crazy. But there's extended stuff, like I said, saw blades landing in people's like throats and stuff, and the guy that gets his arm lopped off, he's in the background screaming and hobbling around with a stump, while Arnold's like totally just going axe murderer, shining Jack Nicholson style on somebody else. So, but those were the scenes that I recall that were a lot more extended and definitely different. So it's an interesting cut to see for me, especially growing up with the movie, and just kind of never gotten to see these kind of extra footage, I guess you could say. But really cool movie. It's still one of my personal favorites. It's a cult movie. It's got definitely a unique following. Schwarzenegger during the time of this, he was just like, he was exactly what Hollywood was looking for. He was just a unstoppable brute. So, all right. So some of the things like I've been working on, aside from all this movie talk, I've been the recent things where I've posted up on the main channel was the Colt brown orange grips, which are just simply a brown and orange marbling of the grips, which is really cool. I like the look of it. Always wanted them, but the original ones are very expensive, and you just can't usually find them. So I started making my own. Well, the other grips that I really like is they're known as Harriet skip checker grips, or Harriet D45, I think is the code on them. And what they are, and how I got kind of fascinated with those, is that comes from a movie called Hard to Kill with Steven Seagal. When I was younger, I saw that movie, and you can clearly see in the old poster of the movie, when he's standing there with the beautiful Kelly LeBrock, he's holding his Colt government model, just awesome 1911 that he always has in his movies. You can see that he's got some weird looking grips on it. They're like these skip checkered looking. They got basically, the way you can describe them is they have diamonds. These relief cut diamonds scattered throughout the grip, and then they have these cross sections that are just like 3 lines of hatch marks, and they kind of separate all the diamonds. And there's a good 10, 15 diamonds on each panel that are big, and they're just like bold. So it's really cool. And then diamonds are different color. They're usually like a blonde or a yellowish orange color. It depends which, how well, I don't know, whatever the age of the wood or whatever that they made them out of. And then, of course, they black lacquer the rest. And the diamonds are kind of standing alone, and they're a different color. Trust me, it's a really cool looking grip. Now, trying to find them, I went through hell and back on, auctions and stuff and eBay and trying to find them. And you really just... it's hit and miss. I've paid anywhere from $15 for them to $50 for them, depending on who's got them and who knows what they are. Sometimes the seller knows exactly what they are, and sometimes you'll get lucky and they're just kind of thrown in there, and somebody just goes, I don't know, they look like custom grips, and you can pick up that auction for like $20, and you get lucky that way. So I've of course, being the obsessive person I am, I collected quite a few of them, original ones, and they're in pretty decent shape, and I used the ones that were in the most poor shape as my ones I would carry on my pistols, because I figure they're going to get beat up by carrying them anyway. So, of course, I want a little stockpile on them, and yes, I do have several pairs of original ones. So I started to look at these things, and I started to think about the process and what it is to make them. How did Harriet's originally make it? Because I talked to Harriet's. I actually called them on the phone when I was trying to get a set, and they're the ones that actually told me they don't make them anymore. It was a process and a half to make them. They don't do it anymore. So, they're like, hey, we're sorry, if you can find somebody that's still got a large quantity of them, you might still be able to buy them. They did tell me they made a lot of them, but unfortunately, they're just not in production anymore. So I started looking at it, and I started thinking, well, wonder how I can make them. So I did. I created a copy of them and then reproduced them over and over, and I got them to look to the point where they look pretty darn good. In fact, I put them on my gun now, and it's nice to have the capability to make them. And so if they get ruined or scratched up, it's no big deal. You just make another set. But yeah, now what I've been tinkering with on it is different colors to change the color of the diamonds. And the more I learn about how the coloring and the color schemes are working with it, the more I realize, well, you could almost do just about anything you can think of with these things as far as color schemes. Of course, all the ones that I'm making right now are more close to the original. But I made some mostly like that's on my stuff right now, which is the red. I used the red on the diamonds, which really stands out, really looks kind of neat. So, but yeah, that's something, a little bit of a prototype in my grip making that I've designed and made that I want to kind of copy of a grip that is kind of somewhat forgotten out there. And I really do wish that they were still available. But now, you know what? Hey, I got a set now that I can make them now on my own. And so you just, throw them on my stuff when I want them. And so the other thing I was working on was as a 1911 guy, I'm a really big fan of shock buffs. I do believe in the shock buff. Some people have had bad experiences with them. Maybe they weren't using them right. I don't know. But I've had nothing but awesome results with it. The shock buffs, they do absorb a lot of the recoil. They came about. The guy that actually really believes in them, and he actually got the idea. He got the blessing really from Armani Swenson. Another really a 1911, in a sense, a big figure in the 1911 world. He allowed Bill Wilson to pretty much take the idea and see what he could come up with. So Bill, to me, when it comes to these 1911s, I really kind of the guys that I look up to is like Ken Hackathorn, Bill Wilson, Larry Vickers, because they're kind of the last of the old dudes that really ran them, know what they can do, know what they can't do, and especially like Bill Wilson that has literally made an entire multi-million-dollar industry out of it. He is extremely successful out of it, going from a watchmaker to doing that. So, they talk about it, and I understand what they're saying. It really does eliminate the metal on metal contact. So. But long story short, these things are not cheap. They're not overly priced, but you're going to pay about $15 for 6 of them, something like that. After shipping and handling, you may be able to find them cheaper some other places. But so I started looking at it, and I said, well, although I still will buy them, but I kind of wanted to figure out if there was a way I could make my own. And ended up making a mold from one. And yes, I ended up making some myself, and I'm running them currently on my guns and just checking them out and seeing how they work. And I'm trying to do the ultimate test. So of course the ultimate test is going to be sit there at the range with like a couple of boxes of ammo, and then see what kind of how well they hold up, per se. So, but the fact that I can pretty much crank them out of the mold like within minutes, it's pretty cool because it saves a lot of money. Even if the ones I'm making wear out quick, it's still in the end I think saving me money because being able to make them for pennies on the dollar. So, but anyway, that's that's what in the world of Bat Jack JW, per se. That's what we've been doing and checking things out. So eventually I'll video some of these things, especially the skip checker grips, and get them out there on the main channel and see what people think of them. I do have things already kind of filmed in that aspect, but of course a lot of it is timing. When would it be interesting to bring it out and show everybody? But I do appreciate it. A lot of you are subscribed over here on the radio, the Stranger Oddity Show, and I do appreciate that. So you get to kind of check out what we're involved in, what we're doing, and I think you're going to also find this next week very interesting topics that we're going to, because we got something new. Something new that we're going to be, that we've acquired. But we'll see how that turns out.